Hi, Janeth. We're going to take a look at your emphasis posting and give you a little bit of feedback and observation. So we'll get right into it. The overview video kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about just in terms of what we're hoping to achieve within the project itself. This review, I'm going to be talking more about your compositions, some of the individual things that I'm looking at, the posting itself, what, how you put it together and the images and so on. So the first thing that I'm noticing is you've got everything organized. That all looks good. You've got tags underneath everything, followed those instructions. But what I am noticing is a lot of repetition. In other words, the images look like duplicates, or at least they're very close to each other. This looks like the same image, 1, 2. This looks like the same image, 1, 2. I'm not sure if there was a miscommunication. We did want different images. That might have just been something that you misunderstood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the one and, go to the next one. So because the ones that you have, even though they're duplicated, they have some value, some real value to what you're doing here. The layering that you're achieving on this image, which is the environment image, is quite interesting. You've got this divided up into 2. So what that's doing is creating a lot of tension. You put the horizon basically in the middle of the photograph. Now, whether you are aware of that, of yourself doing that or not, what it's doing is it's creating that alternating rhythm that we are looking at later on. The alternating rhythm being back and forth, it creates a comparison, which means that we're then looking at that line in the middle, which means now we're looking at the buildings, which is an interesting strategy. Whether you knew you were doing that or not, or you just visually identified it as a kind of an interesting image, either way, you have kind of a name for it now, which is pretty much what we're doing for the class. This course is about looking at compositional strategies and frameworks and being able to use them intentionally. So here we have a bit of a different perspective. I like that you're moving around quite a bit. You didn't feel like you had to be on the base level there on the ground. You went up into the building and kind of shot down at a different perspective. We have a few things that are a little bit, extraneous. Things like the cars over here could have been, moved over, if you moved your camera over just a little bit. We have some reflection here that's kind of getting in the way a bit. Gosh, my mouse is reflection here that's getting in the way just a little bit here. That would have been good that was out. Notice how the building almost looks like a miniature when you're at this perspective, because you're not accustomed to looking at it down that way. It kind of gives it this otherworldly feel to it. Again, the quality of light is quite beautiful. And going off of the corner here, you're getting this really interesting perspective, which I think worked quite well. There's just some fine tuning here I think you could do to get rid of some of the extraneous things that aren't necessary to the photo. We're not editing, but those things could be of interest. Now, I'm wondering if you deliberately place the pole here right along this line. Those are interesting things to do where you're playing with perspective, because that pole doesn't really, isn't on the same plane. We know the pole is much closer to us than the building, but when we line it up with things like that, what it does visually is it kind of compresses space, and that kind of gives us this optical illusion of them being on the same plane with one another. So that's something that you can start to notice and start to use to your advantage. Again, we have a few things that aren't really kind of participating. The image of the figure here isn't really contributing to the rest of the image. She seems to sort of just be there. If she maybe was a little bit more over into here, it might make more sense why she's there. But right now, she almost seems like you were looking really at the space in here, but yet she was over here and kind of you didn't really notice her. Whether that was true or not, that's what I'm getting out of the image. I think overall, you've got a good idea of what you're making an image of. What my advice would be, looking at the overall kind of content of your photos, is to pay attention to all of the picture, because it seems like you're really focusing on what you're focusing on. You're really, concentrating on like this area right in here, which is nicely sort of composed, organized very carefully. And then we have these areas on the very corners and the ends and the sides that seem to be including information that doesn't really belong. So I would say, moving forward, just pay real close attention to the edges of your photo so that we don't include those things, so that you are sort of incorporating everything within the photo. Because again, this sign here, the cars over here, they're not really helping you at all. The one thing I am curious about is when we get back down into here, when we go down into the as I see it, it seems like a continuation of a lot of the same photos, barely moving. This is the same photo as the one we just saw, just scooched over a little bit more. I'm curious if we just kind of maybe ran out of time or something like that. That can happen. So, those things can happen. We all know that it was, somewhat of a cold day, the days that we had. You're always able to reshoot and things like that as we move forward. But as I see it, you're really doing some healthy things. Pay attention more to the outer edges of your compositions. Keep doing the multiple perspectives. I think your strength is in that you're exploring and that you're moving from one perspective to another, and not being afraid to sort of break that plane, meaning you're not just shooting from one level, you're going up, you're going down, you're shooting from one point of view and another point of view. So that's what I have for you on the individual. I really look forward to more of your images. Please ask me some questions on one-on-ones if you want. I'll be happy to clarify any of the things. So we'll see you in class. All right, bye now.